What's the dog's name?
Max. Hey, Janelle. What's wrong with Wolfie? I can hear him barking. Is he okay?
Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine.
Welcome to What's Wrong with Wolfie.
Greetings and welcome to this extra special episode of What's Wrong with Wolfie. And what makes it so special? Well, we're here to talk about the 30th anniversary of Digitiser and the Digitiser weekend celebration that me and Rich have returned from. And on this episode, we're going to be discussing our experiences of the two shows and of the Saturday's Chunky Fringe. And also, you're going to hear some interviews that we took while we were there. And they are Cliff Foster from the N64 Live podcast, the legend that is Carl from Byte High No Limit podcast, and we also had the chance to talk to Chris Bell from the Superpage 58 website. But that's not all, because when we came home, we had the chance to sit down with Jerden Cooke, who is the man behind all the music that you hear in Digitiser and at the Digitiser 30th anniversary weekend. And he's also the man that's responsible for all the original music that you hear on this very podcast. So look out for that near the end of the show. But don't worry, you're not just stuck with me rambling at you about Digitiser, as the crew is all here. Obviously, Chris and Steve, you wasn't there for the weekend. And before we get into mine and Rich's experiences of the weekend, I mean, well, what is your involvement with Mr. Biffo or on teletext in general, really?
So, top of the show, I suppose, if there's anyone in the audience listening who doesn't know what Jason's on about, Chris and I are sort of your surrogate here for this episode.
Well, I'm not far off being completely unfamiliar. I wasn't a teletext person per se,
So I use teletext, but I didn't get into the weeds with it. My only access to teletext was on my parents' TV, and I wasn't allowed to fuck around with that because it was big and expensive. But occasionally, when I got the chance, I would mess around on it, and yeah, it was thrilling. It was like the internet, but on the telly. Before I knew what the internet was, it was like the internet, but I didn't know what that was.
It's a pretty apt description, really, though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
we got everything. We got all the information quite slightly instantly, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Book a bloody holiday, for God's sake.
Yeah, we did that, in fact.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Teletext holidays was quite a famous thing. You could get some good deals on there on teletext.
See, we never did it. I remember playing games and looking up silly things like film reviews and stuff like that, but I don't remember finding Rich would find on teletext the delving into the deepest deep teletext. I was never that into it. I'd like you, Steve. I'd find it and I'd scroll through and oh yeah, I'm done now. I'll put a film on. I wasn't that kind of enthralled by teletext. Maybe it's too slow. I don't know.
It was pretty slow. That's
part of the magic, though. It's like old slow internet. You're kind of waiting for the page to loop back round.
I get it, but for some reason, I just never bothered with it that much until people started archiving teletext pages, and then it was very interesting because you could go onto an old website and someone's archived an entire teletext database, and I looked at it then, but even then I was like, there's so many screenshots, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's kind of what was exciting about it to me, was that it felt like an infinite well of information. Like you could just keep going, and it's like, wow, there's everything. You could find everything on here. Obviously, that was not the case, but it felt like that. It was it very much was a proto-internet, and I would occasionally just shove random numbers in just to see what happened, and you'd occasionally just stumble across some information about something random, and there'd be a pixelated picture of something. Wow, I found a thing that's of no use to me, but it's exciting because I found it randomly. It's crazy. And another thing that I really appreciate about it as well is it's a uniquely British invention,
Very
right?
much.
We're the only ones who did that. which is kind of bizarre to think about.
Yeah, I think on Carl's latest Byte High No Limit episode, he had, I forgot the dude's name, but he was in charge of like their music pages. And like he had to explain what teletext actually was to the American bands because they had no clue. And like then they were asking like how much you have to pay for the service, and like they just couldn't get over the fact that it was free. You know, just completely foreign to most of the world. Bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It is bizarre, and it's just utilizing. I mean, I've got no idea what I'm on about, but it's utilizing functionality of broadcast TV in a way that nobody else thought of. For some reason.
Strange.
Very strange, but great. I love it all the more for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I assumed, like, I mean, did you use the Digitiser pages at all?
Thinking back, I definitely did. I remember seeing Digitiser written in teletext, but like I said, I didn't have unfettered access to it, so it's not something that I could reliably return to. Unfortunately.
See, I was completely unaware of Digitiser until must be 10 or 12 years ago.
Wow.
Rich messaged me and said, check this out. And it was the one, was it? I'm sure it was the Digitiser archive that archived all the teletext pages and animated them.
Yeah.
And I animated them. And I was like, oh, this is pretty, like, I had no idea it was a thing. And I don't know how it passed me by. Maybe I was one of those kids or teenagers that were just like, yeah, whatever, teletext, yeah, just. And then I went down that rabbit hole. And then Rich messaged me, must have been 5 years ago, to say that Mr. Biffo's back, and his first video back was Venus. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I had to do my research because I was so unfamiliar, batshit crazy, like idea and theme. So I was quite late to the game. I just don't remember seeing Digitiser at all on any. I don't know. Maybe I did, and I've just completely forgotten about it, which wouldn't surprise me, to be honest.
I don't think you can forget about it if you've seen it.
Oh no!
Did anyone actually see the worm being sick in real time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that fondly. Amazing.
Spoilers, but at the end of the Saturday show, the worm did show up on the screen and then splurt out the end.
In a jackpiece. Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's a worm being sick. Rich. Come on, don't be vile.
Not just any worm, but the worm from the kids page. Which is like the worst part of it all. Speaking of kids pages, we did find out one nice little nugget, didn't he, of information from the show. I think it was from the Friday night about how they used to at night they used to put the adult advice pages up on teletext. Like, so it'd be about sex advice, so people asking about tips for anal sex and stuff like that.
Huh.
They used to use the page numbers from the kids' pages, but when the service would freeze, so kids would turn on TV in the morning and they would just be reading advice on anal sex instead of letters about Todd's TV and stuff like that. And little kids teletext drawings. Like,
I feel like that's kind of. Why would you use the kids? But come on, this is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Yeah. Someone did lose their job over that, so
I'm sure.
Yeah, there are plenty of other numbers to use, but let's just use the kids channel. No one's going to be like,
it won't freeze. That's the last thing that's going to happen. It's like,
of course it will. But yeah, so I mean, let's get into it, Rich, a little bit. And for the Friday night show, and it kind of started quite normal. I guess is a good way of saying it. It was kind of like a TED talk on the history of Digitiser and teletext, and going through how what Paul had done in the past to lead up to being involved in teletext, and how he got into Digitiser and all that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed that part of the show. It was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then it kind of just broke down when Gannon pushed his head for the curtain saying it's been fucking 45 minutes. It's meant to be 15, and that's when it just went off the rails. But up to that point, it was just really nice grounded. And honestly, I thought, oh shit, is this actually what we're going to get for the Friday? I thought, I'm completely fine with this. I'm fine to forgo any real madcapness and just have something quite chilled and small scale, not manic, not crazy, just just having Biffo do almost like a live podcast on his past and how he got to where he is now, and yeah, so I was totally on board for it. And obviously it mutated into what we probably knew we were going to get. And I was equally fine with that. But yeah, really nice start to the show. Really nice start.
Yeah, and then as you say, Gannon shoved his head through, told Mr. Biffo off, and then he got himself on stage, and it all just went a bit crazy after that. Because what we came to learn, I guess, was that for the last hour of the show, Mr. Biffo didn't know what was going to happen because he put his trust and faith into a man called Chris Bell, who we've got an interview with coming up soon, who runs the Super Page 58 website, which preserves a ton of Digitiser pages online. He gets them from anywhere and just manages to. Well, he goes through all the process on how he manages to find pages and gets them onto the internet for us all to go back and enjoy. And it was him who was in charge of the last hour of the show. And Biffo had no idea. All he knew, I think, was that he was going to get coronated as the king because the royal family had died in a
skiing accident, wasn't it?
In a skiing accident, yeah. Because was it King Charles was rolling down the hill in a snowball or something and was crushing?
Yeah, literally complete with like AI images of like Charles screaming and a blanket of snow. A destroyed ski lodge with like bodies everywhere. Yeah, I forget what else now. I think they said something about how like I don't remember now, but they gave us loads of graphic details. It actually went to like a news report on the screen about how the royal family had been wiped out, and it just gave us all the gory details about how limbs had been ripped off, and then basically Biffo was anointed king of England, and complete with some of the most amazing head garb I've ever seen.
Yeah, it quickly becomes apparent that Mr. Biffo's committed a crime. He needs to be punished or put on trial for his crimes against video games and Digitiser and teletext, as well as pretending to be a monarch when he wasn't actually supposed to be crowned as a king. So this is the part that he didn't know was going to happen. And Chris did a great job, didn't he, of that last section of the show, and like he got loads of videos from loads of different people that are well known in the video game industry. Got them to record all these amazing videos, including Mr. Dominic Diamond himself, which was an awesome surprise.
Yeah.
And Mr. Dave Perry straight after,
and everyone just booed when Dave Perry came on the screen. I felt quite bad for him, but to be honest, even though he wasn't there to see the reaction. But yeah, it was really crazy. I mean, so many people from Biffo's past, actual legitimate bosses within teletext that actually did work against him, trying to, just limit his impact on the service and diminish his role and push him out. And they actually were speaking highly of him, like in this trial. Because I know one of them in particular, I forget who it was now, who the name of the actual boss was, and he basically did his video testimonial, but he was doing it in defense of Biffo. And even though it was kind of like done in a tongue-in-cheek way, you could see it moved him quite a lot, because these people on this big screen in front of him, it was the first time he'd seen him in like 25 years. And I was watching him the whole time. He was just standing in like the actual dock, just watching this screen. I just couldn't take my eyes off him. Like, you're just watching it in his eyes. You could see he was like going through so many different emotions. He was laughing. He was probably thinking, "Oh, you bastards, you got this person on there." And he was just quite taken aback. And it was just quite lovely. A lovely, genuine slice of Paul Rose, the man, and not just this Biffo character and all the shit that comes out of his mind. It was really nice to see him in that way.
I loved it as well, like where he was so worried how self-indulgent it was.
Yeah, it was very self-indulgent.
And it all ended with a lovely video message from his mum, which was lovely and just really sweet. But I mean, in the end, like Friday night was probably exactly what we were hoping for. But going into Saturday was another kettle of fish. But before we talk about it, let's have an interview. Let's feed in Mr. Cliff and hear what his experiences of the Friday night show and about teletext and stuff that he had to say. So, for the fourth time, I guess the fourth time of Cliff being on the podcast, let's hear what he had to say. Well, I've only gone and found the amazing Mr. Cliff Foster, here at Digi Live. How are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. We've just we've had night one. We've just done the Chunky Fringe, and I tell you what, I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing. I got some merch, didn't I? Got his signs and everything. So no, I'm absolutely buzzing. It's been such a good weekend so far.
And I've always kind of wondered your backstory with teletext and why you're actually here.
Well, with teletext itself, going back in day, obviously teletext, quite similar to your story, actually, you said, with football scores coming in. However, I was really big on this little channel on there that was about computer games on Channel 4, and that was Digitiser.
So I used to...
Yeah, Game Central. No, it was Digitiser. And I used to read Digitiser as well as doing Bamboozled and everything else everyone else did. Turn of the Worm and all that jazz. However, Digitiser, I used to... Because my mum, every time I used to go to shops, go, can I get a gaming magazine? She would be like, no, not spending money on that all the time. So it was just a daily gaming magazine for me. Did I get most of the humour? Nah, went straight over my head at the age of between 8 and 12. However, it was vital for my sort of early years in computer games. Fast forward all the way to the birth of UCP, so Under Consultation Podcast, somebody that you've interviewed on your show. Have you interviewed him on the show?
Yes, we had Ash on. You was on the same bloody episode.
Oh, yeah, of course I was.
Batman and Robin.
I was sick.
Don't say it. Now I'm thinking about it. Why are we talking about Batman and Robin again?
Because you're stained with the Batman and Robin-ness of it all.
It's fucking hell, stains.
Stained with Bane.
So obviously with UCP, they did the last ever show of season 1, which had an appearance of a Mr. Paul Gannon. And the famous moment of, I got a bit trigger happy. And with that, I found we might be being run over by a car here. I'm not too sure. No, she's fine.
Live action right here, ladies and gents.
It is. This just shows it's live. However, with that, Paul, they were talking about him being on Digitiser. And I was a bit like, what? Like, Digitiser? But that can't be right. That was teletext. And then he said, Mr. Biffo. Hang on a minute. So I found Cheap Show and I found Digitiser. And literally my comfort blanket all the way through the lockdown was binging every single episode of Digitiser. Every single episode of Cheap Show. Because that's what else could I do while I was working? I used to literally had hours and hours and hours. I mean, every single day I was getting through about 6 Cheap Shows, about 4 bloody Digi videos. It was immense. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
I'm very jealous because I spent my lockdowns playing Animal Crossing, and I wish I'd spent it doing that.
It was a good way to spend it, as well as UCP as well. I'll give Ash a little bit of a shout there and a bit of a prod. But they were comfort blankets. So when these sort of things happen, I came to Cheap Show Live last year with you guys as well. And I think when these things happen, it's not just turned now into a show for me, it's a community. You know, it's lovely that when I see Biffo and I see Sanya, they go, Cliff! That just blows my mind every time.
Yeah, we had that last night when we picked up the merch, and they remembered being on our podcast.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's the Wolfie guys, and Tanya gave us a cuddle and all that kind of stuff, and it was just really nice and just warm and friendly, and
even for me, obviously years of watching, reading Digi, knowing I've got an actual name or face to the name Paul Rose now, decades later.
Yeah,
and I'm nearly 40, and I'm just I don't know how I'm still a fan of this thing, and it's actually grown beyond what I read as a kid.
Well, so it gets even more peculiar for me because, spoilers, I'm going to be on Digi Level 2.
Oh, I hate you so much.
Chili?
No, but it involves food because guess what? It's fucking me, and everyone likes torturing me with food. It is, yeah. So I'll leave you all to find out what I do on that. However,
suspense.
It is. Probably not. But no. But I mean, yeah. I was very I'm here recording with you guys. Now this don't feel fucking surreal. So yeah. So it's Yeah, I mean, like, Digi is a massive community, and I think that if you look at, let's say, N64 Live's community, Wolf's community, UCP's community, I think there's quite one central thing to all of that, and that is Digi. I think that Digi is that we're sort of off-brands of that Digiverse.
I like that.
Yeah, I do as well. It means that we're all sort of interconnected. I'm very proud to tell people that I've been on technically 4 shows now, I suppose.
Yep, we can count that.
Yeah, we'll count this as 4th. So I'm proud to tell people that. So when I tell people about Wolfie, I go, oh yeah, I've been on 2 of those shows. Even though, 2 of them, because one of them I like to forget because it involved Batman and bloody Robin. And you were ill. I still don't believe you were ill. I think you just deliberately avoided it.
I saw it in a cinema, so I don't have an excuse. I watched it once. I don't need to watch it again. So. I was ill then in '97.
Well, let's just reverse it back to the right now quickly before we let you get back to the festivities, and that is just like, obviously we're here for Digi 30th anniversary, unbelievable, but it's here, and we had an excellent evening last night with the first show. How did that go for you?
Oh, it was so much fun. I loved that. I like, because obviously over the last, as I said, during the lockdown, it's been nice to get to know new Digi, but old Digi is like, it's like this big nostalgic hug. So to see some of those characters, especially the snakes being animated on the screen in front of me, or Paul Putner giving the voice of the man with the chin, that was just brilliant. I mean, like, there were certain things like that was just big nostalgic sort of hug for me, and it was great to hear that. Even though I've heard quite a few of the stories, it felt more in depth with the stories. Yeah. And see Dominic Diamond on the big screen as well. That was like, oh, yeah. And then unfortunately, Dave Perry straight afterwards. So you get the good and you get the bad, and you get the marketing managers. So it was lovely. It was
He's a tattooist.
No, it was really, really nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure me and Rich will talk more about our experiences on the pod and on this interview. But yeah, it was a magical night, and I don't really know how they're going to top it tonight, but I think they're going to. I think we're in for a special one.
Yeah, I think that, as I said, last night was all about the old Digi. This is all about what Digi has become, and I am standing, both of us. Well, no, you put yours in the car. You haven't. You are holding it anymore, but a plaque with Venus on there. I think he's going to be very heavily involved. I hope Third Bird's involved. The Action Man. But then we've also got some really cool bits tonight, like Violet Berlin. Violet Berlin!
I can't believe that.
Oh my God! Like, you don't know how fanboy I'm going at the moment. I was like, Violet Berlin! I've been walking around all day just expecting to see Violets just appear and me to go, right, check yourself, it's Violet Berlin. But yeah, no, I'm so excited for tonight.
Yeah, no, it's going to be wicked. But Cliff, thanks, mate. Appreciate it, as always, for your time.
Thank you, Cliff.
Awesome.
No, and we have been semi-discussing of me possibly coming on for number 5 in the future. And I mean, everybody listening, the Wolfie pack. What have you got a name?
No, we've never really.
You're a wrestling fan. Come on.
Woo! Anyway, I was giving the too sweet. I forget it's audio. You can't see the too sweet. Anyway, but no. To all the fans of Wolfie out there, you're my extended family, and I love you all dearly. Thank you very much for having me on yet again.
Oh, bless you, Cliff. Thanks, man. And go and check out the podcast. N64, well, not the podcast at the moment. Go and check out the live streams. N64 Live on Twitch.
Love you all. See you later.
There's a real big stink that's going round. It's coming out of everyone, it's covering the ground. It's coating all the walls of trees your mother's Afghan hound. It's diarrhea 360, can you hear its dirty sound? It's round and round, round and round. Everybody's got it, up on the battleground. It's round and round, round and round. It's coming out too fast, so the world is being drowned.
Yeah, so thank you very much to Cliff, legend as always. But so let's get into like Saturday, and Saturday was there for, I don't know, I mean, we were excited for a couple of reasons, and I guess the first reason was for the Chunky Fringe, because we were guests, Rich, weren't we?
We were.
We ended up kicking off the event, really, didn't we?
We literally kicked off the event.
Yeah.
Just kind of weird, but
It was.
no pressure.
So we got invited to be guests on the Sofa Club with Cole at the Chunky Fringe event. This was like a proper thing, a proper live event. There was like chairs for audiences and there were lights and there were microphones and everything.
Yep,
and
cameras.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
So I think the plan as well was that we were supposed to be on last, but the show started and he didn't have any of his guests there. It didn't have any of his like main big guests were somewhere else. They weren't where they're supposed to be.
It was a proper Roger Moore stuck on the roundabout moment, in that
So we got quickly ushered up, didn't we, Rich, to try and fill in some of the time until they found the guests. But it was really good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was about we started at 12 and I was about 3 beers deep at that point because I was just kind of like, I'm excited, but I'm a little bit nervous. So I'm going to start drinking from 10 a.m. in a car park.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
So that's what I did. But yeah, it was really good time. I mean, yeah, it was a nice little short little segment, but we got to talk about the pod and how it started and the origins of the name. And no, Jason, you went into detail about when we had a Dookie from the Budweiser commercials on there. So it gave the people, it's probably a good, maybe 25, 30 people maybe in the audience. And it obviously gave them a bit of a taste of what it is we do. So it was a nice little introductory course for some people that obviously haven't heard of us before. So yeah, it was almost a nice little promo spot. It was quite nice. So just put the word out there.
Oh, nice.
Well done, chaps. Well done.
Never hurt anyone.
I mean, it was obviously the first time we've ever done anything like that, and we wasn't really sure on how it was going to make us feel or how we were going to be up there or anything like that. But I felt like we were pretty confident and we talked well, and I think, we could have spent longer up there quite happily just to talk about just stuff in general or whatever, Carl wanted to talk about. But it felt like it was over before it started, didn't it, Rich? And yeah, we could have just gone longer, couldn't we?
Oh yeah, I was ready to go. Well, the alcohol was, I don't know, but yeah, I was ready to just take the mic and talk some more. But it was nice just having that little taste of that, but then getting to be an audience member for what was a very, very fun show. Yeah,
definitely. And then his main guest did finally arrive. Yeah, he was quite relieved, I think, that they'd finally turned up, and they turned out to be really interesting conversations as well. Let's have Cole come in and share his thoughts on his experiences of Digitiser Live and about teletext and lots of other stuff, actually. It was a really good conversation we had with Cole in the car park, because, of course, where else would it be in a Digi event in nowhere else but the car park? Yeah, let's hear what he has to say. Well, I've only gone and found the infamous Cole here at Digi Live. The infamous Cole, I'd rather watch The Fly than Jurassic Park. Cole, how you doing, mate?
I'm fine. Thank you very much for thank you very much for the introduction. That's the best one I'm going to hear for the rest of the year.
Awesome, I love it.
Not enough arm wrestling in Jurassic Park,
Yeah, I know, right? You only got yourself to blame for that one, unfortunately. But yeah, you're here at Digi Live. We know that your podcast, Byte High No Limit, is based mostly on teletext, and you get a lot of guys on there and such. So it makes sense for you to be here. But how has your Digi Live experience been so far?
It's been really good for me. It's been quite affirming because I've not often made it to these sort of events, and to see all sorts of different spheres of interest coming in from the digi world, and then sort of landing on us nerdy people as well. It's been really, really good to see, and it's been really nice to meet new people such as yourselves, actually.
Oh, that's very kind.
Thank you.
Yeah, and obviously we had quite an epic evening last night with Digi number 1. How was that for you?
I loved it. It's been much vaunted, the 30th anniversary edition of Digi, obviously, so it was always going to have to be special. He's doing 2 different shows. So the last show on Friday evening was all about really the origins of the teletext, so that was right up my street, obviously, and it was seeing a lot of the contributions that other people in the teletext world made was really good to see. So I enjoyed that. Tonight will be a bit different. It will be his new. Well, when I say new, he's been new to me. The characters that he runs on Digi Level 2, etc. Yeah, so it'd be good to sit back and watch that.
Apologies in advance. It just mean those characters. You're in for a horror show.
Oh right, yes. Oh okay, yeah. I must admit, I've been told that just turn off all disbelief. Really, I'm sure it'd still be better than Jurassic Park.
Wow, the man's looking for a bruising. I'm telling you. But Carl, let's get into like why, like teletext. What teletext is for you. Like is. What made you so interested in teletext? What's made you want to do a podcast based around it, and all that kind of stuff?
Oh well, really, I can't pinpoint the moment when I said I was like really interested in teletext. I think most, as most kids did, when they took time off of school, visited every page to find hidden pages and all that, and I had that certain amount of mysticism with it. Like everybody, you do other things, but then when you come back, you find out that all this teletext software is becoming available on PCs, whereas before it's sort of like completely proprietary. There was no way of you making the graphics. So like when we're all getting PCs back again, we're trying to replicate the graphics. It was always quite difficult. And then one day, really, I found a website where someone had some free software on how to make teletext pages, and it really went from there. And that's sort of like 2012, 2013 maybe. And then I got to collaborate with some really nice people, and then from that, it just sort of snowballed, really. People started to know people, and that's how it turned into a bit of a movement. Why I do the podcast is because I can't build teletext systems. I'm fairly average at art, and all that, but I know people, and I want their testimony to be out there for public domain. So when people want to know, well, what was this teletext thing like, and how did people operate in the newsrooms? People will come away knowing that we were the first in the world to develop that technology, and also it's the technology that got the country ready for the internet. And retro computing, retro technology is much to be celebrated, but it's all come really from that seedbed of teletext.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Like, I think I'm only just kind of discovering the community that is actually behind like the teletext fan, base. There's a community out there that's really passionate about teletext and CFAX and creating art and creating new pages and doing the chunky text and having all this stuff out on the internet. And it's just really cool to go back now and kind of like remember stuff that I'd forgotten about teletext and how cool it was and how frustrating it was as well, all at the same time. But even the most frustrating parts, reliving it now, was just really cool. Like with waiting for the next page to reload, and the typing a page number in and then having to wait for it to cycle through to get to the page that you've put in and stuff like that. And I've completely forgotten that did stuff like that.
I think that was the beauty of that age, though. I think so much like with the internet and teletext, we had to kind of like work for it. And that's all we knew at the time. So we weren't like, oh, this is crap. We just accepted it. Now we look back at it, even though we're surrounded by technologies, everything's just there for granted, on demand, instant. I think we still kind of look back at it with fondness. We don't think, oh, good, I'm glad that's in the history, in the past. And also, I think we're obviously in an age now, I think, where we're losing a lot of access to stuff. Stuff's now being, made, there's a lot of, obsolescence, stuff's being made obsolete, deleted, removed. And I think to have access to something again, obviously we're in an age of like digital rights management. I think this is a generation that wants to take ownership of stuff, and I think with teletext, something we thought we'd lost forever, and now we're actually clawing it back and restoring it. And
certainly, I think that the what the platform has done, it's democratized itself, so everybody can use it, and anyone can use it any way that they wish to as well. You can make your own service, make your own artwork, or you can just take it or leave it and just have a little bit of fun. I mean, there's an account on Twitter called CFO, and he just uses one aspect of that to make spoof TV listings. 4,000 listeners. Why didn't we think of that? And it's a really good thing. But the techniques that teletext has taught journalists still go on today. And you look at X, I think it's called a brand new social media called X. It's really good.
Oh, really? I've not tried that one.
Yeah. Well, you've got this word limit, and it's very similar to teletext, you see.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
The Muskies are all nostalgic. No,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it. And you know, it's sort of like you've got about 80 words really on a teletext page, and I think it's very similar on this brand new the thing that's trying to copy threads. I don't know what it is, and news journalists now, if you ever look at a BBC I or BBC app now, all the stories will fit into teletext pages because they're told to have, like, to keep it factual, you have a running sentence, 2 paragraphs, and then if it goes on to the next page, you have to have a running sentence to refamiliarise someone in case they didn't see the first page and do that. It's such a skill on concise writing, and it's a skill that a lot of journalists still use. I mean, I interviewed Steve Rosenberg, who is the BBC Moscow correspondent, and he did work experience for the Moscow 80 Olympics working at BBC CFAX. Wow. He then winds up in Moscow and comes across 2 engineers working on their teletext system in the collapse of the Soviet Union, and ends up running their first ever CFAX or their first ever teletext. You know, and when I tracked Steve Rosenberg down, it was like I was the first person to speak to him about it because somebody else I'd interviewed mentioned it in their podcast. So it's super sleuthing, and when you remind people of all the technical achievements that they made, they turn around and they go, do you know what? That's really been nice to be reminded of it. So, you know, things go full circle.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's like anything, isn't it? Like from when we were younger, we don't really appreciate all the stuff that's going on behind it. We're just happy to be using the service. So as an adult now, and like the technology that we've got available to us, and being able to go back and talk to these people and learn these new stories, it's just really fascinating to hear.
It is, and you know, we're in an ecosystem where we know a lot about retro games now. You know, we know a lot about retro consoles because there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that find out things and they can share it and broadcast it to us. And there isn't really that thing about teletext, and it is a subculture. It's a culture within a culture within a culture. I get that, but you know, it's nice to be contributing it, you know, in a positive way, and you know, really enjoy doing it. It's quite funny really because I was speaking to the guy who did the music magazine, John Earls, who was a music journalist for Planet Sounds on the teletext version on Channel 3. And he said that the hardest, the most bizarre thing he ever had to do was explain teletext to a US pop band or an artist, because he had to explain that there was this magazine available for anybody who had a microchip in their TV, and they could just read whatever they liked, what was up there. And they would always come back and say, well, how much does that cost you to read? And they were going, no, it's free. And they go, wow, that's counterculture, man. You know, we were hipsters in this country long before the term was coined. And, you know, it's good. I always like to say it was a computer in my front room.
Yeah, pretty much, mate, pretty much. So obviously alongside DigiLive is the Chunky Fringe, which is like a collaboration of people who've all brought kind of the technology that they use to create the new kind of pages for teletext and getting teletext up on the internet and everything like that, and some other kind of celebrations towards teletext. But of course, obviously there were some live shows as well that were part of Chunky Fringe this year, and obviously you kick-started that with your Sofa Club. How was that for you?
It was good. I've really enjoyed it. It's one of them things, and you're out your comfort zone, and when you've finished it, you feel better for it. And then the feedback's always very good. Everybody wants you to do well, and everybody wants to listen to the guests. So you can't go wrong. All you need to do is turn up and hold the microphone, really. But it was really good, really enjoyable. We had some really interesting contributors. We had Super Page 58, who was perhaps the biggest culprit for why we're at Digitiser today, although he wouldn't even admit that himself. We had the teletext archaeologist, Grim Fandango. Again, we were never meant to get these pages. They were never meant to exist. And with the efforts of Jason and the discoveries he made with a few people in the recovery community, we've now got over 4,000 pages on an archive that anybody can go and take. And again, we don't, there's no Surfshark sponsorship or anything like that in it. It's all there for anyone to learn about it.
You got a friend? Oh, no, okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, all good.
Thank you very much. No worries.
We're getting pimped all the food and drinks while we're talking.
What's does not happen when we're not interviewing people in the car park?
Yeah.
I might put free money, anyone?
Oh yeah,
no, I'm busy. I'm doing a podcast, mate.
Scrap that, man. See you later.
Do you feel like with all the restoration of teletext going on, do you see this as a nice little nostalgic thing that's going to age out with another generation, or do you think other generations might appreciate it, like with vinyl, with a lot of younger people today?
That's a good question because being realistic about it. When I was a kid, it was Elvis Presley, wasn't it? All the older generation, it was Elvis Presley memorabilia and things like that. They're not there to have that anymore. Will retro gaming and teletext go the same way? It's interesting to see. That's one point of view, but again, the other point of view is that the more we can get out there and just get actually what happened out there for people to observe and to perhaps write about themselves in the future. We're in strange times because, if podcasting existed at the time of when the ZX Spectrum first come out, would there still be people interested in it now? Would we have known the stories and everything? It's just, that's quite a philosophical bent, really. But you can only enjoy what you enjoy at the end of the day. And if other people can enjoy it, that's bully.
Yeah, very true.
I think you hit on a point there, really, because I think the generation now that does know everything, because of the internet, they know the story, they know most stories and everything else. When it comes to them being adults and looking back, they won't have anything to discover because they'll already know it.
Yeah, it's quite a scary thought, isn't it? There's a gentleman here called Peter Kwan who works at a company called MRG that made a lot of this teletext equipment. And he's been on the news at 10 and all that with and then finally a bunch of geeks have made teletext come back and all that. But his analogy is excellent, and you can't better it, really. He says, it's like people who do steam engines up. We need to know about steam engines. Are they any better than what we got now? No. But, people still work on them and love them. And it's our steam engine.
Yeah, I love it. Well, perfect way to end the conversation. Teletext is just like a steam engine, which is better than I'd rather watch The Fly than Jurassic Park.
That's going on a t-shirt, isn't it?
But Carl, mate, thanks very much for your time. It's been much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
God bless Carl. We love him dearly. He's a great guy, and it was a really great conversation, actually. And he took it all well on the chin because, he'd rather be watching The Fly than Jurassic Park.
We're gonna get more from Carl, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like I can never have enough.
He's a genuinely lovely guy. It was really cool to meet him. So soon after, really, we were kind of introduced to the wonders of Cole. At least I was like, oh, okay, Cole's cool. Within a few weeks, boom, I'm talking to him in a car park.
He's just wonderfully unpredictable. Think it's gonna go one way? No.
It was a really nice, adult conversation that we just had, that you just heard. Rich's question that he fired at him was a corker as well, mate.
I do my best.
I know. But let's get into the Saturday night event, and I think this is where we obviously had no idea what was going on. We knew Venus was involved in some form or another, but this one being based on modern Digitiser and all the modern characters that he created, and is involved in Digitiser now, we knew was going to be on stage at some point. But I don't think that we were really prepared for everything that happened on the stage.
No. from the actual opening, like they've obviously for both nights, they kind of when you walked in, I know night one it was kind of just like some fake teletext pages, like hilarious teletext pages, just littered with gags, and then the following night was a bit of a video reel, like trailers. Then there was like the man's daddy joke segment that kind of opened the show, or at least it was it pre-show, or was it early into the show? I can't remember, but either way, like those jokes, oh my god. Because if you don't understand the man's daddy, he's just this like completely fucked, like twisted, distorted character in like a gas mask, and he just sounds like he's in incredible pain, and he's just murmuring these jokes. Nothing he says is legible, so we had to read the jokes along for him. And there's one of them that just completely sent me, and I don't know if we can tell it on here. I don't know, but
it was the Alan Carr joke, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah.
It was how did Alan Carr get his glasses? He stole them from a dead boy, and it was just a whole theatre reading that joke out, and I just lost it. I was like, we haven't even started the show proper, and yeah, fantastic.
You were giggling for quite a while after that.
I was done at that point. Yeah, I was choking. So, again, that speaks to why I've loved Digitiser for 30 years, because I think Biffo kind of gets me. Like, it's been my sense of humour as long as I can remember, and I don't know how much he kind of informed that, or it was always like it, and I just found this like kindred spirit, this person that just spoke to me. But that's my humour, like in a nutshell. It's just perfectly my humour. Dark, kind of weird, just makes no sense, irritates people that don't get it. So off to a very good start on Saturday night.
I don't know, we get Venus obviously comes on, but like before Venus, it's all a bit of a blank really for me, because I think everything from that point onwards, like just overtook my brain.
Yeah.
But when Venus did come on, and the idea of the Venus section.
Don't class him up, Jason. Come on.
Right.
He doesn't deserve a title. Yeah. So shit.
They got a load of guests on. They all had a mystery box each.
Fucking Violet Berlin was on that segment. Jesus Christ.
And in each box, there was something different. And they had to put their hand in, feel it, and guess what it was, basically. That was the basic idea of the game. So we went to a guy called Ash Frisch first, and
it's a long name.
Yeah, and he had was it a child's comb covered in molasses?
Yeah. Well, at first I thought it was spunk, but
yeah,
child's comb covered in spunk. No.
Oh God, what else was in there, Rich?
Oh, Gannon obviously was a bag of dog shit, wasn't it?
Literally a bag of dog shit.
Like not a facsimile.
No, they went out.
You could smell something. I think he said to Venus, he goes, like, "You got this from a bin in the park, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah." Just like, and they held it over the crowd on a broom as well, and they went to throw it, but obviously they tipped it back onto the stage, so it didn't actually go. But they made us think it'd gone over our heads into the crowd. It's just a nice little black bag. It laid on the front of the stage for a good 10 minutes before they swept it away.
Good Lord. Good Lord.
But then somehow it ended near the back of the stage, and then Venus kicked it, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he kicked it too hard, and it went into the front row.
Oh. Again, actual dog
poo in a bag, yes.
If it was gimmicked, they did something to it, because you could smell something. So, yeah. I don't know.
So, this is where it went. I mean, at certain points as well, he would just randomly bring out a stand-up of Mr. Bean.
Oh, was it Fun with Atkinson, wasn't it? That was the segment.
Yeah, and he had a Stanley knife, and so then he cut. Like the first time he cut his eyes out, and then he got these cooked sausages.
Oh, they were raw vegan sausages. They were raw. They mashed up when he pushed them through.
And it's just pushing them through the holes to try and so he'd have long sausages sticking out of his eye holes.
But where the holes were too small, they were just mashed. They were just squashed, dropping onto the stage floor. They stunk.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Steve.
What the fuck?
I know. Then the second one he cut with a Stanley knife, he cut a hole for the penis and just pushed more vegan sausages through it.
Naturally.
It was obviously telegraphed it, He thought, well, it can only go down there
for a pound at that point. Yeah, absolutely.
Part of the, it's the story, It's a narrative structure. You got to, but, and then there was points where the golden bean would be interrupted by the sound of an ice cream van. Oh, ice cream van. Oh, it's gone. And the music would just stop. And it would just be okay. And it would just carry on. There was no resolution to the ice cream van. One never appeared. You just heard the music.
But that's why it's funny. And it just reminds me of when we had him on for that recording and you could just feel the ADHD energy setting all of us off. And it was glorious. I couldn't imagine being there live and just going. I think it's probably so overwhelming and overstimulating that, like Jason said, you blank. It's what the fuck?
Oh, there was the other one as well that was in the box. My favourite that I wanted to take it home with me was the baby salami. It was just a massive salami with this small baby's withered face etched into the front of it.
Okay.
Proper newborn, really tiny, just crudely. Yeah, it was awful, and I wanted it so bad. Yeah.
And then, of course, the end of the show was a musical that Mr. Biffo had wrote on, well, was it David Braeburn, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one half of the guys that created Elite for the ZX Spectrum, wasn't it?
And he needed a poo, but he couldn't go. So it was a whole musical play extravaganza on him trying to buy laxatives off the black market.
Basically, his constipation was impacting the development of the game. They couldn't finish the game because he couldn't poo. And there was a line in it that said, let's get back to developing this game before we freeze to death. It just made no sense. There was no winter theme. It was just a line. And I lost it again. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
It sounds like a narrative feast.
Yep, and there was a couple of police officers that came on the stage to arrest him for buying said laxatives on the black market. One of the police officers was Octavius Kitten, wasn't it? And then it's just amazing. Amazing.
Did he poo, though?
He didn't. Well, he did in the toilet in the end, didn't he? When Quang came out dressed in the toilet costume.
Yep.
Yeah, and he squatted on a man dressed as the toilet. And then there was a massive musical number, and then big balloons dropped on the crowd, and we all sung David Braeburn did a poo, doo-dah, doo-dah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have another question.
I think I know what it's going to
be. What the fuck?
Oh.
I think when we walked out of the theatre, we were pretty kind of shell-shocked, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still so much unpacking from it. To the Golden Bean bit as well, one of my favourite lines from Venus, and it obviously kind of followed on from one of the videos they did on YouTube, where he just said about, because Gannon was shouting at Venus, to go on with the show. And he just says, Venus just said to him, I'm not ready, I haven't got my knife. And it's just, they've really turned him into this horror movie antagonist, because at the very end of the first night, you get the little video at the end saying, basically to be continued, night 2, and you get this really distorted Blair Witch grainy video. It just is really close up static shot of Venus's face staring at you, and it's all this noise and bad tracking, and he looks almost like he's in a warehouse, and he's just proper right up in the camera, with his bacon smile, and it's just fantastic. And I was so ready. Well, the moment I saw him, I was like, yes, Venus. I love Venus so much. He's this generation's Blobby. He's just this terrifying force of nature that I think is incredibly lovable, and people that don't get him just despise him. Blobby was, a violent force. He would just go crashing into people. Venus wants his kitchen knife. It's it's just amazing.
If someone was looking to familiarize themselves,
I'll send you videos, Steve. I'll send you the whole playlist.
Okay. Because I don't want to, I want to know, I want to get in at a starting point where it makes sense. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be confused. I need to understand what I'm watching.
Yeah. it's something you just need to just watch and just watch again, and then make sure you watch it a third time to make sure that what you watched existed.
Yeah, because I have a third question, but I feel like maybe I need to like go away and try and answer that myself.
In summary, that's basically it. That's basically it in a nutshell. So,
okay, right,
yeah,
got it.
There
Eliminating.
was Action Man as well. Action Man was there as well. So
of course it was. Yeah.
They actually did. Was it one of the first videos that Venus appeared in on the Digitiser YouTube? He actually explained where he got the suit and the mask from. Is it some like arse end of Japan dealer somewhere?
Those masks are readily available to the point I really want to buy one. But I know I'll get divorced if I do. I'll wear that everywhere I go. That's not an office job. I will wear that with pride.
You just want to wear it. Just want to wear it out like on a cold day in the winter. Just like
oh yeah,
pull this thing down. You got 2 fried eggs and a fucking bacon smile.
It's so, and that wig, that orange curly like Mick Hucknall hair is just so good.
It's really good.
And he has like the whole Slipknot boiler suit as well. It's just so good. Oh man, I love him. Pop culture icon. I love Venus so much. I do love that there's been like teletext art of him. Like people have done it since. I like to think he was always there, lurking on teletext, but the page
watching
would never
people
load.
through the static of late night teletext.
Yeah, so good. Oh.
But yeah, all his other characters he did. And that's kind of what happened beforehand, wasn't it? Before Venus was Action Man and
Piccadilly Willy as well.
Piccadilly Willy, yeah. I mean,
that was god. Oh,
I think Piccadilly Willy is probably one of my favourite characters that he does, just because he can't keep it together when he does the character.
It's just when you're trying to maintain a voice like that, how do you? How do you?
Because I think like all the other characters that he does are, I mean, they're all stupid. But I mean, I think he realises just how stupid Piccadilly Willy is. Like, you know, with his hat and his bandages and his lipstick, and like he's got to practically shut his eyes and then do this high pitched voice, and just seeing him just lose it.
That whole challenge was messed up as well. When they had to guess what was in the cocktails.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, every cocktail was made using Piccadilly, and you had to guess the other ingredients.
Oh no!
And one of it was Piccadilly and Guinness.
Oh, no. God.
And it looked like shit. It poured out of a Sunny D bottle. It was just brown. It was just disgusting. Just like, yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, someone did that on it and won. Good times.
Yeah, it's coming back to me now as we're talking, and the Action Man skit as well was just great.
Action Man was so good.
Everyone was happy to see Action Man.
I love Action Man.
I think it kind of proved as well on how much he probably loses it doing it for the videos, because he couldn't really keep it together for that either, could he?
No.
But that just added to the show. It was just all
so good.
And I just haven't laughed that much in so long in those two shows. It was just immense. And
yeah, it hurt at times. Absolutely fantastic from beginning of Friday to the end of Saturday.
But we've got a couple more interviews to play for you, and so we should get into our next one, and that is Mr. Chris Bell, Superpage 58 himself, to talk about his Digi Live experience and Superpage 58. So please take a listen.
I have managed to get Mr. Chris Bell to come along and say a few words for the podcast. So, Chris, thank you very much for joining me in this romantically lit car park at 10 o'clock at night.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. And anyone who doesn't know who you are, enlighten them for me.
I'm the little guy that's been running Superpage 58 since 1997, archiving Digitiser. So from back when Digi was actually happening on teletext right through to the present day in its YouTube form, from the days when it was just from my memory written up as text to now when we're actually having recovered actual Digitiser teletext pages archived on the site. So yeah, I've been there from a long while back now.
And why decide to do this?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why does anyone decide to do anything? Because you can. Well, because it's worth doing, it's worth remembering. Initially, it was because it was just a little uni assignment why I started the site, but I kept doing it because it was something that I loved, and teletext, being the transient medium that it is, felt that it was worth having a record of. And in the late 90s, we had very little of that, and there was no guarantee that anything would ever be retained of it. It's a dream, really, a fever dream, that we've been able to have teletext recovery in the last 10 years or so, and we have to see the actual pages. But back then, it was just about getting everything down that you knew that was going on. So, the whole archiving process is transformed, and people care about it. That's why I do it, and who knows for how long that'll be the case. But while that's the case, I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, it's really like remarkable job that you're doing. I mean, preservation is quite an important thing these days, considering like how throwaway things can be, and especially something like a service like teletext is not around anymore. I think it's really important to be preserving that kind of stuff for not only us who lived in the time of the service being alive, but also maybe for people who want to see in the future what ancient people, or people from our time had and enjoyed, I suppose. And so I think the job that you're doing, preserving Digitisers, is a really cool thing that you're doing.
Thank you. Well, I mean, there's a term for it now, isn't there? Archive panic.
Yeah.
So when a medium is at risk of being lost, people scramble to be able to retain whatever there is of it. And we've been doing that kind of thing since the 90s. Before there was that kind of a mindset to it, really. Digi back then was like a hidden secret. It was tucked away club for a select few, and it was just nice to know that there were people out there that were on the same wavelength as you. And like you say, people in future generations to be able to look back at what was going on in late 20th, early 21st century and the kind of things that we were looking at. I mean, yeah, it's throwaway, but what isn't ultimately? And so many things that you could consider to be insignificant throwaway things have gone on to have more importance as time has gone on. So did the BBC think about what they were going to do with their tapes that they recorded over and lost so many significant things? No, because they were just doing what they were doing at the time. Teletext the same, and even the people that worked at it didn't appreciate, I think, how significant it was. And we're just lucky that there is a way now to extract it from old tapes and see it again, because none of us, I think, really expected that to be possible, and to be able to look at those pages that were here today and literally gone tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't know how involved the process is on like scraping a teletext page from, say, like a VHS tape, but I mean, is it quite an involved process?
Well, it's a nice question, actually, because we've just had Chunky Fringe here today as well, before Digi Live, where it was just a gathering of retro tech people showing their homebrew stuff, and a lot of that was teletext and the actual teletext service running, for Chunky Fringe. And so the process itself, it was all started out by a guy called Alistair Buxton about 11 or 12 years ago, when he wrote an algorithm that, with a bit of machine learning, that compares the signal for teletext on old VHS record. And the problem with the signal is that it's too poor quality to be able to press the text button as you're watching the VHS tape back and have the picture load. So what it does, it compares multiple snapshots of the same page over and over and over and over, and tries to build up a best guess of what the page should be from all those examples. And then you take that, and then a human will make sense of it and try to restore the page to what it should be. In the early days, up until about 1998, 99, Teletext Limited, the Channel 4 ITV teletext license holders, they had a checksum, so you could actually confirm whether the page was correct or not. So anything before that time we know when a page is restored if it's correct. Afterwards, it's a bit guesswork, but it's near enough most of the time. So yeah, you can scrape it off the VHS. Most of it goes to a guy called Andrew Nile. He fixes it up in seconds. He's written his own program to help his workflow to do that. They send me the output of PNGs, and I stick it on the website.
Wow, awesome!
It's a whole team effort.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. You know, to hear like it's a combination of different people who help to get it up. I think just makes it a little bit more magical and just a little bit more nicer, doesn't it?
It's a community thing.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it is that you have people who are interested in different parts of that process. So you have the people whose love is finding the tapes and securing these historical moments. So like we saw one today of the first ever shuttle launch from 1981, and so there'll be people that do it for that, and they'll archive their own side of things, but then they'll pass on the teletext signal to the people that are interested in that, and they'll process that, and it gets passed on to me, and I extract the digi stuff, and some of it goes to people who are interested in magazines, some goes to people who are interested in Turn of the Worm, and it all just gets distributed around.
And obviously we're obviously here for Digitiser's 30th anniversary, unbelievably, that we've managed to get to this milestone, I guess. And how's the weekend been for you? Has it been what you expected, or I mean, I know you were involved in the first night with quite a lot of the show for you, wasn't it? And how was that for you?
Well, has the weekend been what I expected? With Digi, it's very much expect the unexpected. But yeah, with last night, I did know a large chunk of what was happening because for some reason, Mr. Biffo said that I could, have an hour's worth of time to do the material with. So we put it on trial, and it was a complete show trial, panto, and I fully expected the audience jury to find him guilty, but they didn't. They got him off. He was acquitted. With his help contacting people, but he knew nothing about what they were actually saying. I went out to a number of people from Digitiser teletext history and asked them to make videos as witnesses in the trial, and they all did brilliant jobs. They got the brief, they understood what we needed, that it was Panto and he was the villain, and they invented some fantastic crimes for him, and some of the production values of their videos were joy to behold.
Obviously, like you say, Mr. Biffo didn't know what was coming, so I think that kind of added to the show to see his disbelief with some of the videos that were shown, and how did it make you feel?
Oh, I was watching him a couple of moments rather than the video, because obviously I've been very familiar with the videos. I've been looking at them a lot in the last couple of weeks with all the editing and everything. So I was just checking him out and seeing the reactions that he was having, and the look on his face was that was worth it. That was what it was about. It's just he went from disbelief to wonder to look like being very touched by things, and a couple of times he seemed like he couldn't believe what he was watching, and then it just seemed to get better from there. So I didn't have any expectations particularly, but I was very happy with how it went down. It was great that people laughed in the right moments as well. That was a relief.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the stress,
especially where they were planned. But it was great that it went down well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you did an amazing job planning it and writing it and getting the videos, and I'm sure you had a hand in editing those videos. I mean, and that's not a short process. It's a time-consuming thing to get it right and to get it all together for this big event that's quite important for a lot of people. And you just smashed it. It was a great show, and we just laughed, and it was great.
That's what it's all about. When Biffo said to me, let's do the trial and you can do it, I was like, what? Are you sure you want to turn over time in the 30th anniversary show to me and you don't even know what I'm doing with it? It's like, wow, okay. But it's an opportunity, and you've got to say yes to these things, haven't you? Because when is that going to happen again? Exactly. And my history with Digitiser, it's a dream come true. So I don't need thanks for it. My thanks are just seeing everyone happy and making Biffo happy, because he's made me happy so much over the years. So that's why we do it. Everyone put in a great effort. All the guys that made their videos, they got what we were going for, and they produced some really funny stuff. And we covered all the bases. I think all the major touchstones were there. So he had stuff about meme machines, and like the editor of Meme Machines was there taking the piss out of himself. Which was he was a good sport. Great. And you had stuff about the Sonic 3 72% review. And, you know, the old assistants, Mr. Cheese and Mr. Udders, were there just lampooning themselves as well. So everyone, it was all very tongue in cheek, and they all got involved. So yeah, couldn't have asked for more.
I think the only thing that I wasn't surprised that he didn't get put on trial for was his Star Fox Adventure score from the GameCube, because that was quite a nasty score. I mean, I know it's not the greatest game in the world, but I didn't think it deserved that.
And I think he said as much since, hasn't he? He regrets that. And if there was any game he could go back and change the mark for, it would be that. But exactly. With time constraints, you got to hit the home runs, haven't you? So, low hanging fruit time. Really.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Spectrum QL, oh, can't purchase my trinket. Sir Clive would bellow. Sir Clive, Sir Clive, Sinclair. Sir Clive, Sir Clive. Oh yeah.
Before we get into our last interview, I mean, overall, Rich, like, what would you say you could see Mr. Biffo doing in the future, I guess, with a live event? Do you think he'll do one again?
I mean, I hope so. I probably imagine it might not be a weekend. I think weekend was very much because this was a real milestone, you know, and a lovely round number like 30. I mean, 10 years prior to that, it wasn't really the online presence that it is now. You know, there were videos circulating. There was the Biffo board, but other than that, obviously, I think beyond this point, I could still see him doing the one night shows. I really hope they do so next year, because I know it's probably been a real challenge for them with all through COVID and the stresses that have come with putting the shows since then. Some of the obstacles they've had with like things that have happened, like train strikes. It's been a lot, you can tell. But it makes me love what they've done all the more. Like they just put on such a wonderful show, 2 nights in a row, lovely atmosphere. Everyone involved was amazing, from like Suze Kempner, Violet, obviously Paul and Sanya, Gannon, Eli, the whole crew. But they just put on an amazing weekend for everyone, and they're really lovely people as well. Like, you meet them, they're just wonderful. And you wouldn't know they've gone through all the stress that they have with some of this stuff, especially with Paul and Sanya. There's been videos they've put out where I think even like Paul's been quite vocal online about how much it's just got to him sometimes trying to get this all together, and so many obstacles along the way. So I hope that doesn't dissuade them. I hope they see how amazing the weekend was, and that they do something again next year, because I will be there with bells on. Absolutely. You won't keep me away. They could do a week of shows and I'd do every single day. So I'd be there. No hesitation whatsoever. Yeah, fingers crossed. And if they do it, then I imagine they'd probably do something more in line with what just modern Digi is now, and not look back. You know, this was a celebration of 30 years. I think now they just take what Digi is in 2023 and beyond, put that on stage, because it's brilliant. It's captured, you know, the minds of a lot of younger people that didn't necessarily do teletext, weren't around for teletext. And obviously, again, it appeals to people that were there from the very beginning, you know, myself, Jason included. So, yeah, I really hope they are back next year, and it's more of what we got on Saturday night.
Okay, so it's time to sit down and listen to the Jerden Cooke interview that we took with him earlier today, and it was a great interview, and it does include some live music. So let's take a listen. Well, we are delighted to be joined by a man that not only has done all our original music for the podcast, but also has been involved in creating music for Digitiser and working with Mr. Biffo, not only for the Digi Live 30th anniversary event, but for many other projects from the past with Mr. Biffo and Digitiser. So we'd like to welcome to the Wolfie Pod Mr. Jerden Cooke, or Chris, whatever name he wants to use. But welcome, mate.
I was genuinely thinking I would stick with the Jerden because you have another Chris and it's just too confusing otherwise. I know there's a lot of Chris's in general.
Mostly.
We can call the other Chris Jerden. Yeah, make it really confusing.
Well, that's true. That the delight you expressed on having me on may well fade away. It depends how useless I am as a guest. Anyway, let's find out.
No, you're going to be just great. I just know it. I've got feeling in my bones. But yeah, like in the intro, like you've worked for Mr. Biffo for quite some time, and before we get into like the Digi Live experience that we had at the weekend, can you just tell us a little bit about the history that you've got with Mr. Biffo?
I was a Digitiser reader, but not like right from the beginning. Certainly, sort of in the last few years, before it had the jokes stripped out of it, and then of course after the jokes came back, then I was on his web forum, the Board of Biffo, the late lamented and was lamented at the time Board of Biffo, a web presence which it went bad. In ways I don't know, but like forums go bad. We've had that experience.
They do.
And this is one that did go bad and famously caused Biffo to disappear from the internet for about 10 years. And then he got in touch with a few people from the Board of Biffo that he still wanted to actually have any contact with, and I was one of them. And we remained in contact by email for a bit until he finally thought it was time to come back and go on Twitter. And that's it. He knew I did music, and when there was the first thing he did in public, the teletext block party in Cambridge in 2016, he created a quiz called Quiz Me Do, and he wanted a theme tune for that. And so I wrote the theme tune to Quiz Me Do, and immediately he emailed back saying, I've listened to this about 20 times. We can't stop going Quiz Me Do to each other because that's how it ended. And from then on, he went on to create found footage and had me on board for that. And I've been on board ever since, even though he started making music of his own now as well, which is very good. Does mean I have less to do, but I'm very supportive of his very ambient, musical direction.
His music is very different to the music that he needs for Digitiser, isn't it?
It is, and you would expect maybe him to do the wacky music, but that seems to be what I have to do, and he does these sort of bizarre, progressive, explorations, sonic cathedrals that he builds.
Yeah, it's so going through, like, I suppose all through the years that you've worked with Mr. Biffo and obviously Digitiser, has there been a specific piece of music that you've created that you think is like, one of your favourites?
Very recently at Digi Live, there was the Willy Wonka style Piccalilli Willy section, which had a bit. It was going to be a song. There is a vocal version somewhere, and Biffo was going to sing it as Piccalilli Willy. But you've heard the voice, the Piccalilli Willy voice is like this. And so imagine going, "Come with me, and you'll see." And the music to that was like, even after I recorded it, I was like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever written. And the lyrics are going to be like about eating a pickled fox. I don't know if it's worth playing it out here. Should I try it?
I think you should try it, yeah.
It was something like... I've forgotten how it goes. It went like that, and the lyrics are going to be ridiculous about, just fill yourself up with Piccalilli by scooping it off a tree.
I mean, I really would like to have heard him try, but I can imagine, as you say, it would have been a killer on his voice, on his throat. Oh.
What else has stuck with me? The Ballad of Sir Clive was an early big hit from Mr. Biffo's found footage, a song about Clive Sinclair's other less well-known invention, the Sinclair C6, a vacuum pump that sucks human effluent back up into his own guts.
Also beautiful.
I love that man so much. Oh, wow.
And I'm trying to think of other examples from when found footage came back briefly in lockdown as Mr. Biffo's lost footage. One of the bits near the end is, I think he released it on his album as Grendel, but I called it the Mortality Sequence, and it's a massive sort of Pink Floyd-esque thing that also got played at the pre-show at Digi Live 2 with the space things, and that's real good. I try not to be big-headed, but also, like, if I didn't think I was writing stuff worth listening to, then why would I be doing it? So I try to balance those two things, even though I'm normally quite self-deprecating. But that's a real good bit, and it's the most like the kind of music Biffo actually does when he does music.
So, like, getting into like Digi Live, the 30th anniversary, like, how far in advance did you have to start like planning the music that you needed to create?
With Biffo, a lot happens in a short time.
Yeah.
So the amount of planning of that, I would actually say, is only a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the fact that we've done a song about programmer David Braben doing a poo to the tune of Camptown Races on both previous Digi Lives. So it was kind of a given that was going to happen again, but that got expanded into an entire... He called it a musical. It's not really a musical, but it's a play with 3 songs, which I wrote and recorded and then mimed on stage.
You mimed? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I generally was. You sold me.
I think I probably could have done the vocal live, but up until the day, I wasn't even meant to be on for the other 2 songs. I was just going to come on in the last one and do the Braben Dunner Poo reprise.
Sometimes when it comes to having a subject matter about a song, you just have more to say, and you just have to go back and explore those themes some more.
Well, in this instance, he had to explain that before David Braben did a poo, he couldn't do a poo.
Okay. Important context for the narrative, I think.
Precisely. I think it's backstory that had failed to be explored before then. And then we, of course, found out about the illicit black market Russian laxative street name Rear Admiral.
This all happened, by the way. We were in the theatre watching this. It was amazing. It was, oh my god!
I think the best bit as well was Quang having to come on with, with this toilet outfit on, and then Ashford said to like squat to pretend that he was on the toilet, all on stage in front of a few hundred people.
I don't know how accurate this is, but Quang, he's a lovely man. He's a programmer, but for Digi, he operates as the AV fella off stage, making music and videos happen. He claims that he wasn't told that he was going to be wearing the toilet costume. So when they're calling for the toilet to arrive, he's just standing there because he's expecting someone else to come through dressed as a toilet, not himself. So that's why there was a mild hiatus on stage.
He did. I do remember seeing him on the side of the stage with the outfit in his hand, and he did look very confused. So that'll be why.
But then in the end song, of course, he got to do some of his still very impressive break dancing whilst dressed as a toilet.
That was
a great picture of me miming my guitar while a b-boy toilet just spins around in front of me. I understand there was a lot of other manic stuff going on stage, but I was on stage looking out at the audience, so I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know there were balloons until they started hitting me.
Yeah, same for me as well. I mean, I think, Jason, you had a bit of a spoiler, didn't you, about the balloons?
Yes, I did.
In a very roundabout kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did know about... I mean, I kind of sneaked on stage before the show, but I didn't sneak. I was helping Violet Berlin take her suitcase.
It was sneaking
backstage.
Violet Berlin backstage. Yeah,
exactly.
We understand.
It happened. That actually happened. That happened.
It did actually happen. Yeah.
Kind of weird.
It was. It was a perfect time, perfect moment, wasn't it? So she got out of the cab, She had lots of bags. I asked if she needed some help, and she did. So
I've never seen you move so fast, Jason.
It's blooming Gaz Top. Gaz Top should have helped out rather than just sitting at home. That's who she's married to.
I didn't actually know that. I feel like I maybe should have.
Gareth Jones, he's called. But
I'll be damned.
He will always be Gaz Top to me.
Of course.
I say married. I'm not entirely sure they are married, but they are as married.
Quick chat about the Friday evening show. I mean, I guess you knew bits and bobs that was happening, but did you know about everything that was happening?
I saw the rehearsal, which is a very dry run through of it. But since I wasn't going to be in that show, I was happy. I was an audience both times. But when Biffo says he didn't know what was happening in the trial of Mr. Biffo, that is 100% true. That was not done in the run through. I didn't see any of that, and I didn't know any of the stuff that was going to occur, and clearly he didn't either.
Yeah, that was fascinating to watch as an audience member, because I was like fixed on him the whole time, just reading his expressions. That were the testimonials. It just really was quite lovely.
And I saw the giant video of his mum showing up at the end saying that he's a weird one. he found that quite emotional.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, so like seeing that whole end section of the Friday evening show was quite. I suppose it was quite nice for you not to know what was coming.
It's the first time, and it's the first time for a Digi Live. I'm always in the audience, but I always at some point have to leave the audience and go backstage. I've never seen the Golden Bean done live because that is point. It's always towards the end of the night, so I have to be in the wings or backstage getting ready.
So I don't want to speak for Chris here, but I might be the least familiar with this stuff on the podcasts. So like, I don't really know what the fuck anybody is talking about, and it's like Golden Bean, man dresses the toilet. I'm just like, what is happening right now?
That's a good point, and I should realise that other people listening to this podcast might not. Also...
I mean, it's delightful. Don't get me wrong. Please continue, because I'm having a good time, but I have no idea what's going on.
Just wait till it's YouTube. That's all I can say.
I've got vague ideas because I'm sort of familiar with their stuff, but not as familiar as Rich might be. So I've got a vague idea of the Golden Bean and Mr. Biffo's various characters that he summons into existence.
For people unaware, the Golden Bean is a variety sort of, I say quiz show, but it's more just a things happening to people show, hosted by Venus. Yeah. A man who likes beans. It's as simple as that. His face is made of beans, and he has a shock of bright orange hair.
I've seen that man before.
Traumatizes the ever-suffering Paul Gannon.
He has a couple of songs about himself. One about how he likes Christmas beans at Christmas. As far as I can work out, those are just baked beans that you have at Christmas. And a song from when he became a messianic figure, Venus Christ Superstar.
Of course.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Oh, you didn't have any. How much involvement did you have in any of the Venus songs, Jerden? Or were you hands off for those?
He wrote the lyrics, I wrote the music, and I recorded and sang them. I say sang. Well, no, I did sing them. I'm not a great singer, but when we started doing songs, I kind of figured, because he was always hiring a few people from Fiverr to do things, I kind of figured that I would send things off with a guide vocal on, and we would get someone who could sing on them to do the singing. But he ended up quite liking the way I sounded on a couple of them. So over the years, I've become sort of less restrained. When I've gone, I'm clearly going to be the singer on this now. So when it gets to the Braben Cannot Poo reprise, it's the closest to decent singing I feel like I've done on a Digitiser recording. Another reason I didn't want to screw it up live. But I know we're talking about miming here. At Digitiser Live 2, I did sing live in the finale a ballad, Let's Get Tony Home, about a small man from the moon who was abducted and now lives, I don't know who he lives with, but he lives in Canterbury and is hoping to raise money to go back to I just realised that's lore that has never been revealed. I know he does live in Canterbury. It hasn't come up in any of the things. And Let's Get Tony Home was a charity single to raise money to return Tony to the moon.
That's particularly quite tickling for me and Chris, because Canterbury is like a stone's throw, at least from where Chris grew up and where I currently am. So, yeah, that strikes a chord with us.
But Tony has also got a Welsh accent, despite living in Canterbury and being from the moon. Unless, of course, a moon accent is very similar to what we consider a Welsh accent.
We may never know. It explains the Welsh.
It's true. He hasn't gone back to the moon yet. He became a Doctor Who style villain in the intro of Digitiser Live 3. So there may be more to explore with young Tony from the moon. I don't even know if he's young. I don't know much about him personally. I've never met him.
Again, for anybody in the audience who's confused right now, don't worry. I also am.
All I want to know is how thick's the Welsh accent, because the thicker, the funnier.
I wouldn't say thick. What I would say is inaccurate.
Okay.
So much so that it was only this time that I realised he's meant to have a Welsh accent. I was like, he's always had a Welsh accent. Does he go, I'm 24 from the moon? Is the way he does it.
Obviously, it wasn't the only thing at the weekend that you was involved in, Jerden, because obviously running alongside DigiLive was the Chunky Fringe, where we had a collection of people that are revitalising teletext and CFAX, and they brought along a lot of the technology that they use to do so. And
that's fascinating stuff. It's a little outside my area of interest, the technical aspect of it, but it's not completely outside it. I do like seeing the stuff and hearing about the vertical blanking interval, which is where the teletext was hidden.
Yeah.
And, learning about page construction and things like that.
And that was all, really interesting there. People, the teletext architect and some other people that are, very active in the community with all this, preserving teletext pages and stuff like that. But obviously, running alongside that in a separate room, there was a live event, a couple of live events, and you were hosting the 32X Factor.
Yes.
Oh
boy, it was.
How can you tell us about that?
What I can tell you about that is I'm amazed it worked in any form. I even if he hears this, I don't think he'd mind. It was devised by David Wolford, who is the brainchild of Chunky Fringe, and it's ostensibly a game show or a quiz or something about people's video gaming regrets. And the idea is someone will come up and explain how they had a copy of Monty Mole that wouldn't run and things like that. That was Monty on the Run that wouldn't run, whatever it was. Stories like that. And then people would vote on who had the worst one. And that's the show. But it was more complex than that, because the whole thing was essentially a sequel to Mr. Biffo's found footage finale, the Trojan Arse Protocol. So if you already didn't know what I was talking about, you're going to know even less about what we're talking about. Yeah.
Completely oblivious right now.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Trojan Arse Protocol.
Correct. Those are the words.
Sorry, continue.
How do I briefly explain Mr. Biffo's found footage in a way that doesn't spoil the lore? Which is that the idea is it's a bunch of weird sketches but they're on a videotape that Mr. Biffo found. And they are nothing like Earth television. So, without saying too much, they're recordings from another dimension. That spins out into like a 20-minute, it might be longer, sci-fi short film about this other dimension sending us material and things. And that's called the Trojan Arse Protocol, and the arse bit is also very accurate to the film in a way that I can't explain.
Is it got an arse in it? Is that what?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
it has. It has arse-faced creatures and a giant arse which pokes out of a dimensional rift called Brannigan's Vortex. Now, Brannigan's Vortex is the means by which the transmissions were sent to us. Biffo, if you're listening and I'm getting this wrong, please write in to correct me. And essentially, the host of the 32X Factor, although he is called Jerden Cooke and he looks like me, is someone from the other side of Brannigan's vortex, and he doesn't really care about what the show does, as long as at the end all of the contestants and the judges get shoved through Brannigan's vortex and end up on the other side of the dimensional rift. But the other thing about how David Wolford put this show together is he wanted everything in it to be a surprise to everyone involved. And I mean, like, including the contestants and the judges, as well as the audience. And to some extent, me. So you may have seen I was gripping a bunch of cards throughout the whole show. That's because I had no idea what the format of the show was or what I was meant to be doing at any point. So I was essentially winging that entire thing, which is why I say it's amazing that it works. I knew at one point I was going to be approached by a strange figure who was a former Sega of America head, Tom Kalinske, who wanted to shut down the show because we were called the 32X Factor, and he didn't want us using their trademark. So we all had to plough through a curtain and come back out again, having retooled the show as Saturn's Got Talent, which was then shut down by, and I mean the recently deceased Bernie Stoller.
I gasped and cackled in one breath when he came out. Just like...
who was the same man dressed in an all white suit, and I mean like not like a Randall and Hopkirk deceased all white suit, but like a almost like a hazmat suit with a hood up. And I was like, oh my God, it's the late Bernie Stoller.
A tasteful tribute, I think.
Yeah. Both he and Tom Kalinske both worked at Mattel, so I was like, hey, good work on that Barbie movie. And he objected to us calling it Saturn's Got Talent, so we had to get everyone off stage again and back through the curtain. This is the thing I knew was happening and no one else did. So I'm like, back through the curtain, mind your head on the support structure.
Of course,
which seems to be a catchphrase I ended up with, that people like, say the line, mind your head on the support structure. I don't think that has life outside of that show. It's not memeable. It's not applicable to other sections. I did get to change it to mind your head on the vortex at the very end, because the support structure was revealed to be the entrance to Brannigan's vortex, you see, once Kevin Dyson had won his bag of gaming tat, which turned out, by the way, to be a really good bag of tat. I don't know if you saw the stuff that was in there. It's all Nintendo stuff, but it's some DS games like Mario Kart DS and Star Fox Command, and then on Wii it's like New Play Control Pikmin, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn.
Wow,
nice. And the GameCube games, Wind Waker, the original Metroid Prime.
Crikey.
And I've already forgotten what they all are. It's somewhere available on Facebook in the Digitiser Weekend group. But see, I just it was called Gaming Tat. I just fished a bag out and shoved it at him, but done work well. Problem is, Kevin hasn't got a Wii or a GameCube or a DS.
Oh no!
That just makes the gag funnier.
Yeah, it is. It's very in keeping. Apparently, he's thrilled to have them anyway.
So what happened after you had to come back out after the Saturn one?
Oh, sorry, I apologise. Yes, then it was retooled as any Dreamcast will do.
Mm-hmm.
All of these jokes are David Wolford's jokes. They're very good. Some people are like, what's the worst pun of all of those? I go, there's none of them. They're all great. And I wrote a theme tune for the 32X Factor, and one of the jokes was meant to be that because the title sequence happens 3 times with the 3 different titles, that I was meant to do like a slightly less enthusiastic version of the theme tune each time, in a similar vein to a found footage joke about the theme tune to a show called Do You Remember This? Which happens 3 times, and then the sequel show is Do you remember this? And then there's Do you remember this? And as they go on, all 3 of them have elements of which just have lower and lower energy. But I'm afraid I didn't record 3 versions of the theme tune. But what I did was just go, yay, progressively less excitingly when I came out of the curtain each time. But yes, I have no idea if I would do something like that again. If I did, I would try and have a little bit more planning to it. But it seemed to work. He was expecting the whole show to run 90 minutes. I thought I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm getting this in about an hour, and I did.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were in the audience, and well, we enjoyed it immensely, didn't we, Rich?
No, I absolutely loved it. I had a great time.
That's good, but it was the product of sheer terror and misunderstanding. It's also, David wanted me to be a slightly more dickish host and like be insulting to people, and at one point like leave the it was called the Boiler House, but the venue where we were doing it, and pretend I was going to the shops and
right.
And I thought, I'm not doing that. So maybe play the piano while people are talking, but the pianos were up the other side of the room, so that wasn't going to happen either.
No, but it was great, and it was. I mean, we didn't, as audiences, didn't know what to expect either. And
again, I wish to make it clear that I, as the host, didn't know what to expect either.
So yeah, no, it was really cool, and it was a lovely way to spend the Saturday afternoon while we waited for the Saturday night. And I think is there anything else you want to say about the Saturday night show?
No, but I did really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I had seen. I knew what was happening, but even so, the experiencing it in I call it's a studio, but it is someone's sort of glorified shed in Harrow, and then seeing the full stage version where it gets expanded because people keep forgetting their lines or giggling, and that itself becomes kind of like Bottom Live, becomes part of the show going wrong. That itself is content. It's a very different experience. And the seats are uncomfortable in both situations. The Harrow Arts Centre seats are not great, but that building is quite old now. It's a very, very classic kind of chair design. Ow.
Yeah, they did get quite uncomfortable nearer to the end of the show. Lots of fidgeting and getting into different positions just to try and relieve it a little bit.
And when you know that the two previous Digi Lives had massively overrun as well, imagine sitting in with those for about 3 to 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
Although they did have intervals, which is another reason why they overran. This time it was just straight through. You didn't have to get back into the mindset.
Yeah, I think that was probably for the best as well.
I agree. Oh, and the other thing, sort of, by the way, watching DigiLive and being me particularly, is I'm always surprised how much I'm in it, one way or another. Music or my voice shows up in things like at the start of the Golden Bean. It's the Golden Bean. It's me doing that.
Oh wow!
For instance, so sometimes I know when I'm going to be in it, and sometimes it's a complete surprise. And the pre-show as well had a bunch of songs, like the song about Mark Zuckerberg touching your hair.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes, Jerden, I find when I hear some of the vocal work you do, it really, I sometimes think it's Ashen's. It really sounds very similar.
A lot of people do have thought that. Slightly different proposal. I was in the audience for a cheap show live that Paul Gannon does, his podcast.
Yeah.
The Urine Vision live stream. And Biffo played a thing at the top of that, which was a Monster Mash parody called, I think it's called The Forbidden Dance. And it's a song about a man who works at a mortuary who decides to have a dance with one of the corpses. And it's a very jolly tune up until the very end. And everyone in the chat going, is this Ashen's singing? And people go, yeah, I think it is. And I'm just sitting there in chat going, arms folded, watching it. I love this. Some people have thought I'm a Larry Bundy Jr., particularly on a song called Brown Around, where I actually do sound a bit like him at one point. I was trying to sound like Hugh Cornwell of the Stranglers. But I ended up with Makes Your Colon Scream, which doesn't sound much like Larry Bundy here with me doing it, but it did at the time. I'm trying to think of who else people have thought I am. No, the rest of it's just visual, because I'm a fat man, a fat white man with glasses. So sometimes you get comments like, wow, I can't believe you got Gabe Newell to sing this.
Oh, God.
So, no, that's funny. I like that.
I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned recently is like how much like vocal work you do for Digitiser, and a lot of the stuff from the past and the present, and that just makes it even more remarkable skills you've got, man. So well done, dude.
Hey, man, thanks. That's cool.
Seriously.
I've probably forgotten a lot of what I've actually done for Digi, whether it be voice or tune things. Like, it's not always me on a voiceover. There was a bit at the top of the Euphomference, which is that was done by Dan Does Crafts. He has a very good sort of Tom Bakery kind of voice that he used for it.
Well, thank you very much for coming on at short notice anyway, mate. Do appreciate it, as I fired a question at you at like 2:00 this afternoon. So no, I really appreciate you jumping on.
That's all right. This is good timing because I am having a bowl of spaghetti bolognese waved outside a glass-paned door here.
Oh, wow.
So it is time for me to disappear.
Yep.
Thanks, Wolfie Pod. Always a pleasure. Lovely to have met you.
And you.
Yeah,
we hope you come back at some point.
Thank you so much to Jerden for joining us at short notice. As we said on the interview, I messaged him at 2 p.m. today, and he very kindly jumped on and gave us a great conversation. It was really, 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 really cool.
Was it my favourite revelation when chatting to Jerden was, and I don't think this made it into the recording, he told us just beforehand, but the What's Wrong with Wolfie theme tune, you can sing What's Wrong with Wolfie, I Can Hear Him Barking to the theme song.
Yeah.
So when you listen to the theme song to the podcast, listener, sing along, why don't you?
Jerden did even mention that to the audience at Chunky Fringe as well when
he did.
Carl put a question out to the audience asking them if they knew where the name of the podcast came from. And Jerden piped up and then proceeded to dispense that fact. And that was the first I knew of it. I was like, in the audience, like, no way, it's my podcast. And I just learned that. So I learned like an ass.
I didn't know that about me.
Yeah, so.
But he never said that to me at all in any of our messages at all.
That's a sign of a true genius. You know, he just did it, didn't want to make a deal about it. Just
absolutely. Yeah. It's just his creative process, man.
Exactly.
Big thanks to Jerden. Big thanks to Cliff, Carl and Chris for taking their time out to talk to us. Very, very, very much appreciated. Thank you very, very much. Let's get out of here, shall we? Thank you to everyone that has listened. As always, you're great people, and we really, really do appreciate you. And if you would like to donate to the show, then you can do so by visiting our coffee page, where you can show your support, starting from just £1. And if that is not right for you right now, then a review or rating on your podcast service will go down a treat. Come and join us in our Discord server to discuss the topics we cover: films, TV, video games, and much more. The link can be found in the show description or on our website. And speaking of the website, please give it a visit. We have articles, game reviews, an entire back catalogue of episodes, and more at thewolfiepod.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, then please do the stuff for us. You know, click the bell, subscribe to the channel, all that shenanigans. It'd be really, really much appreciated. But chaps, it is time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Farewell all.
Goodbye.
My name has been Jason, and you've been listening to What's Wrong with Wolfie, a retro podcast to the max. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.
What's wrong with Wolfie? I can hear him barking.